Okay, everybody's here. Let me do a brief intro for this topic. What we're talking about today, everyone, is the sex for profit industry. We're talking about the men who pay for it, who are basically the driving force to keeping it alive. When you look at the numbers for this, for the sex for profit industry, according to statistics, it has surpassed the drug trade in volume and revenue. Worldwide, we're talking billions of dollars. And when you can, in this topic, we're going to talk about not only sex trafficking, but internet porn and the strip clubs and everything, this whole industry together, billions and billions of dollars every year. So this business model is basically based on women and of course children as well, some young teen boys. But we're going to focus today primarily on the men that want to use the bodies of women for their pleasure and entertainment, and what that does to their relationships, what that does to men, what it does to the women, what it does to families and our society as a whole. So I have a couple of guests. One is Lilliana. She goes by the nickname Happy, and she used to work in the strip industry, so she's going to talk about that perspective. And my expert today is all the way from Germany. She uses the name Ellie Arrow, and we do not have her face on the screen, which is going to be joining us by voice for her own personal security, and I respect that. But we want to make sure that she's safe, and she's giving us some real scoop on this whole thing. So Liliana, give us a little background about, what brought you, what made you interested in participating in this broadcast?
Yeah, well, you introduced me. I started stripping at the age of 18, all the way to 20 years old. I'm 23 now. It's a really crazy world. You see all kinds of people, all kinds of things happening. This is a really important topic. Like how you said, it affects everyone, man, woman, child. So it's really good to talk about things like that.
I agree. Okay, and let's see if we can get Ellie in here. Ellie, can you take a moment and introduce yourself and let the listeners understand, what your background is and why you're participating in this show?
Yeah, hi. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have like this elaborate introduction. I hope that's all right.
Yes, go, feel free.
Yes. Ellie, I'm from Germany. I'm 22. I'm like a feminist activist, and I've been engaging with the topic of the sex industry for about 5 years now. And it started as a personal thing for me as well. I wasn't in the sex trade, but I was affected by the ripple effects of the industry, and I didn't know that at the time. I was sexually assaulted by a man who was inspired by pornography. He said so himself. He was really irritated when I didn't like what he did, when I got upset, because he said women in pornography like this. And since I've been talking about this openly with friends and lots of young women, I know this is quite the common experience. And I was thinking for a while, if it was bad for me, like does it mean to be the woman in that video? What are the lives like of what a lot of people would call a porn star? And when people hear a porn star, they think glamour and money, but actually it's not glamorous at all. A lot of women make so little money that porn doesn't pay the bills. They also have to go into prostitution. And a lot of the time, the people who are behind the camera and doing the shoot are pimps. And I got even more interested in this topic and concerned because I live in Germany and this stuff is all legal. Porn, prostitution, and stripping is viewed as completely normal. And because it's legal, people think it's safe. They think this industry is sanctioned by the government, so they think it's okay. And we have about 1 million men every day making use of this industry. About every 5th man in Germany participates. And over the years, I got in touch with women who were in the trade and talked to them, and they said, we are so sick and tired of everybody talking about us and what's wrong with us and why did we get in? No one's talking about the men. We need to start talking about the men and why they are doing it. So that's what I've been doing, trying to find out who they are, trying to find statistics, which is really difficult, and trying to study what they themselves say in interviews or on their forums online.
Wow, that's pretty horrific. Those numbers are pretty horrific. So let me go back to you, Lilliana, for a minute.
Sure.
When you were 18 and you went into this industry as a stripper, what was your primary motivation?
Well, I was in a really horrible situation, coming out of domestic violence. You know, I was literally homeless with like a 2-year-old living in a car, you know? So just total desperation. And that's really common, like, in places like this. Like, everyone I knew, working at the same club with me, like, they were leaving domestic violence, going through a divorce, you know, like really crazy situations, basically. And, you know, when you get desperate, I guess you consider things that you thought you would never do. A female that I knew as kind of like an acquaintance, she introduced me. She's like, oh, yeah. She showed me like her money, you know, and they show up like a stack of money. So for someone like seeing like, wow, I could get $500 like in one night, like that's more than I'm making and I'm working, you know. And it's like a lot of young women, I think they're really like allured because of the promise of quick, fast money. Is really, I know this is really, really glamorized in the media, but at the same time, when you're in the industry, like it affects your life so bad. The shame, the societal shame, you know, your family, friends, people, how they look at you changes completely to the point where you're like really dehumanized, you know. But then at the same time, these people are like, you hear it on the songs, you know, praising strippers and this and that, you know.
So what you're basically saying is that in general, the people who are in this industry are women who are desperate and they really don't have any other option.
That's what I've seen. I've seen also too, like there's all kinds of women, like, you know, whether they just do it because what's it called? Like, you know, they're in college. Like everyone has their story, but in my experience, like the women that I've known, that was generally the situation, you know, like it was like some kind of crazy event happened to them in their life, and then like here you are now, you know.
So these guys, are these women who are showing you all this money, are they essentially recruiting for these clubs and recruiting for these pimps?
I would say probably, yeah. Like at the time, I didn't really know and I didn't understand. Because I didn't really know the person like that, you know. So I just thought, like, okay, this is an easy way out. But there's a lot of recruiting that goes on, like, inside of the club because, you know, how the other person on the panel was saying that, like, it's all kind of connected, like, as far as, like prostitution, you know, porn, sex trafficking, like, you're like when you're in this industry, like they're all kind of together. So like it's a daily occurrence that you'll be like solicited, like, oh, do you want to shoot like this video, you get this much money, or you know, why don't you
Oh,
come
I see. So the
work
guys,
here?
the
Yeah,
customers and the visitors to the club are recruiting the girls for other things outside the club.
yeah, because a lot of them are people in the industry anyway, like people that they shoot adult films or they do, you know, have escorts, that kind of thing.
I see. Okay. Let me get back to you, Ellie. Hello, Ellie?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. What's that sound? Let me, did you hear what Liliana was saying about the recruiting and how the women are tend to be attracted to this industry, are pretty much got their back up against the wall, or they're desperate for money for some reason?
Yeah.
Did you
Yes.
find that to be the case in your research too?
Yes, absolutely. Like it's difficult to get exact numbers on the women in the sex trade because there's a lot of reluctance to take a close look because it's ugly. It is. But there was a government study in 2004 in Germany that was very clear, like women go into this because of desperation, domestic violence, poverty, etc. And what's a very clear trend in Germany is the increasing number of poor women. Like when the EU opened up to have the countries Romania and Bulgaria join, we had a gigantic spike in women from that country being pimped here. And so like when a lot of people, they hear legal prostitution, so they think that women go into it for some kind of sexual adventure, but it's still all the same reasons. It's desperation. Pimps are involved in the legal trade. They kind of operate behind the scenes. And I think the most worrying thing is that Johns know about this. They have really detailed knowledge. Like they talk about it on their forums. They know that the women come from the poorest parts of the country. They know that a lot of women are in domestic violence situations, etc. They're quite conscious of that, and they can still somehow justify it to themselves to pay for it, even though they know the women wouldn't touch them if they really had a choice.
So these guys, I just caught what you said. So they have forums and where they're basically predators as far as I'm concerned. They actually sit there and talk about the women that are being victimized and how they're going to victimize them even further. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes. So these forums have a specific purpose. Like these guys help each other find women who are the kind of body type that they're looking for. Like recently there was this guy in one forum, he was looking for a Syrian refugee. He thought that might be appealing, a woman from the refugee home. So he was asking, where can I find one? And then they're like all exchanging addresses of where you can get one. And then after he has paid and used her, he will write a review to share with the other men. So how was she? How well did she comply with his demands? Were her online photos real or did she fake them? They will go into, this is some of the hardest parts to read. They will go into very detailed descriptions of women's bodies. They will talk about how big were her breasts, how tight was her butt, or how tight was her vagina. So things like that in very, very demeaning ways.
Oh my God, these guys are just sick and twisted. Okay, Lilliana, what do you have to say to what you just heard?
Yeah, I totally agree with what she said. I experienced the same thing, like, working in the club, we would have patrons or whatever, and if you're not their type, they had like no qualms about telling you right there, like, oh, you're ugly fat bitch or whatever, you know what I mean? And like, I remember this guy at the time, I weighed like 100 pounds literally. And this guy told me like, you would be so much prettier if you lost 20 more pounds. I'm like, really?
Oh my
So
God.
like these people, like I know it's a lot of them like extreme misogynistic, like they literally don't view a woman like as a human being. And, anything is fair game to them, talking about them like that. I've met, people that they were like literally rapists, like it's just crazy. You get literally like a lot of predators. Obviously, they're going to flock to a thing like that,
I remember when we were exchanging emails and you pointed out that you noticed that there was a difference in the clientele between a Friday and a Saturday. Can you kind of go into detail about that?
Yeah, so also between day and night, daytime people on their first assumption might think, oh, and you're stripping in the day, you're not going to get money. But actually, that's one of the best times because the people with the real money, we would say, are in the daytime, and then where I worked was by an airport. So just like steady traffic, so we had businessmen, all kinds of like people, mostly like really old people, like older gentlemen. And so that was a steady stream of income. Then come Friday nights, you get pretty much like a mixed crowd. And then it's like the younger people, I guess you would say, like young guys, like, you know, whether they're like just fresh 18 to like 30s, you know, that, you know, they're coming to strip club for, you know, whatever, you know, but these are the ones too that they really disrespectful. Like I noticed like a lot of the younger guys are just completely disrespectful. Like, you know what I mean? To the point like they, you know, they have no, you're not supposed to like touch certain areas. Like they just totally disregard that. I've seen people get slapped, you know, like
See,
you
I'm
know,
the kind, if I would have to slap them back. So it would just be
yeah,
like, you
there's
know,
been that. Take that thing off and whack them with it.
and that's good. That's what they deserve. So do they,
Yeah.
security tosses them out after they do that?
I worked at one club that had good security. A lot of other clubs, the security is kind of like they're just worried about the club. They don't care about the girls really. So I've seen like I've gotten robbed before. You know, because if you think about it, you're walking around with a big wad of cash, right? And like they don't even have the courtesy to walk the girls to their car, or, like whatever, you know. So like one time I was like accosted in the parking lot, and like somebody like came and robbed me. I'm like, okay, you know, the money's not worth my life. I'll just give it to you. But like, yeah, it was really dangerous. And like, only one club I worked at had good security that like they'll put you out, you know, and they'll ban you and stuff. But I've noticed like where I'm at, like the security is like they just want to protect the club's interest, like make sure people paid, you know, make sure they're paying for their drinks, that kind of thing. Like the girls are the last thought for them.
Okay. Well, let me put you back on hold and get Ellie back on here. So Ellie, tell me a little more about your research and these men. Are most of these men single or married, or what did you find when you were looking at this?
Okay, so something between a third and half of them are in a long-term relationship. So it's not that these guys can't get a woman, like it's that what they're looking for is not the kind of sexual relation that you would have with an equal, where both of your needs and your boundaries and everything matters, but they're looking for someone where they can just totally ignore that. But these guys come from all socioeconomic backgrounds. They have slightly above average income because it costs money. So the richer guys have a bit more money to spare. They are slightly younger than the average guy. So libido plays a little bit of a role, though I don't think it's key because there are plenty of men with a healthy libido who do not partake.
Right.
Then there is evidence that men who pay, they will consume more pornography and they will want to reenact that. And they're going to they're going to have a slightly harder time finding a woman outside of the sex trade who is going to willingly participate. And they might have to put in an effort to convince her. And these guys are really lazy and they want her to do, you know, what he wants on the push of a button. They don't want to put in the effort, so they prefer to go to the brothel. And like I would say there are guys there with misogynistic attitudes who don't pay, but those who do, they have this specific, right, at the push of a button, I want to get my needs met now. And they feel like they're entitled to that. It's kind of, to me, the sex industry is like if you build an economy on the basis of incel mentality. Like I am owed sex in exactly the way I want with a young, attractive woman who might be totally out of my league or who I would have to work hard to impress outside the sex industry.
Well,
That's my take.
I was wondering because so many of the letters that come into my advice column, the women are expressing their fear and concern about the weird things that their boyfriends want them to do. And you know, they seem to be kind of torn between what they should do to satisfy him versus what they're doing that is still in line with their own morals and values. So tell me, Lilliana, I'm just going back and forth between you. When you had interactions with these guys, how many of them would you estimate were married? Did you see like, you know, wedding rings or whatever?
Yes, a large majority of them are married. and they will sit there and trash talk the wife, to you, like, oh, my wife is this, or she had a baby and now she doesn't look good, or like she won't do this or she won't do that. And it's like, in my life, I thought it was hilarious because I was previously married, so I experienced that kind of treatment from my ex-husband, right? So now I'm on the other side of the fence that, okay, now this guy wants me. It's kind of weird dynamic, I guess. But yeah, like, a lot of them, they're married. A lot of them are in relationships. They will complain about the wife or the girlfriend. They won't do this, they won't do that, just trash talk them, like, total disrespect. And I know this too, a lot of women now, they're going to the strip club, like, with their partner. I've seen that.
Oh,
And like,
really?
yeah, like, it's getting more and more common, and we used to really hate it when that happens, because it's like, it just brings drama in the atmosphere, because they'll be sitting there like with a stink face, and it's like, I can't really blame them, but at the same time, it's like, why did you go here then? If if it seemed like the guy dragged them there, kind of like, they're sitting there mad, and then I guess this is your job, so I have to talk to you because I have to make money, right? And I'm seeing a lot of that, like, and then it just threw off the atmosphere completely, because it's just awkward, like, and then these people, like, they're scared to do anything because their partner's right here, you know what I mean? Like, they won't want to get a dance, or really throw money where, like, we're benefiting from it. They just came here to sit and look, I guess.
I wonder what that's all about.
Can I jump in? Like,
Yeah,
I have
sure.
I know a woman who is in prostitution right now in New Zealand, and she said that sometimes guys come into the brothel on their birthday and they will bring their girlfriend for a threesome. And she says that she will always turn them down because the women are so uncomfortable. They don't want to be there. They don't want to lose their boyfriend, but they don't want to be there. And she'll put like their comfort over her profit interest. Like the guys always promise to pay a lot for a threesome, but she always turns it down because she cannot stand looking at a woman so uncomfortable. So that's another thing that happens.
Wow, this is kind of okay. So what I preach a lot on this channel is boundaries, and it's sounding like these women are not establishing or maintaining theirs. It's like, why can't you just tell him, no, that's not going to happen? No, I'm not going to no strip club with you. No, I don't want a man who goes to strip clubs. No, why can't they say that? What do you think, Lilliana? I'll get your take too, Ellie.
Because I'm a younger woman, and it's really hard, I guess, to find a guy that won't cheat on you, won't be going all the time to the strip club, is not like addicted to porn, that kind of thing. I think a lot of women, especially younger, have a mentality. It's like, well, if you can't beat them, join them, you know. So they try to take on aspects of like the women in the industry, thinking that will make the boyfriend want them. But here's the thing, like, if he's doing it anyway, he's gonna do it no matter if you're there, if you're not there, how you look. If that's something that they do, that's something that they're gonna do. And so these women will they'll do things like with their body that they never wanted to do, that doesn't feel good for them, just because he wants it. And that's very important as a woman, that you have your boundaries and you stick to them, because I think a lot of people want to believe that, oh, it's all guys. Even though it might be a majority or a lot, it's better to not settle, and have someone who respects you, instead of just like degrading yourself for this guy that he's gonna be doing what he does with or without you. So I think
Oh,
it's kind
girl,
of like
that's very wise. Look at you with your little self, little youngster with all this wisdom. And that's, I mean, what you said makes total sense. And I wish more young women got it. I think you're right. There's a lot of the focus is on having, this having a man thing. I have to have this boyfriend because sometimes they feel like that validates them in some way. But if you have a boyfriend who's dragging you through the mud, breaking your heart, breaking your spirit, shattering your self-confidence and self-esteem, making you question your womanhood and attractiveness and everything else. Why is he there? I mean, that's like you're
Right.
destroying yourself to have this relationship. I don't get it. I don't get it. Well, is there anything else you want to tell us about these men as we go forward? I'm looking to see if you have any particular stories you want to share, because
Yeah.
some people, I think some young women feel like this is a glamorous thing. You know, wow, they make all this money and they get to walk around in these outfits and, you know, it's all cool and it's all wonderful. And I would like, you know, for you to share some stories. I'll get back to you. Let me see what Ellie has to say. So think about that and then I'll get back to you in a minute.
Yep.
Okay, Allie. Where is Allie?
Okay, so being in a relationship with a man who uses porn or watches porn, or makes use of the sex industry in some way, I would ask for some, like, I would totally agree. Do not settle for a guy like that. If he's making you unhappy or uncomfortable, never, like, don't twist yourself for him under, like, no circumstance. But I would still ask for some sympathy for young women who go through that, because I mean, I remember being 18 and really not knowing my boundaries and not knowing what I wanted and what kind of relationship or sexuality I wanted to have. And like, the society really doesn't give young women a chance. Like, the message is everywhere, not just the boyfriend, but the society, the media. And I know quite a lot of young women who also watch pornography. So like, starting at 12 or 13, they never have a chance to develop their independent sexuality and learn about healthy boundaries and all of this. It's a not very secret conspiracy to me. Like, that is really difficult to fight against. And I remember I probably wouldn't have woken up about all of these destructive dynamics if I didn't have a friend who like told me, you know what that guy did to you wasn't okay, and it has something to do with pornography. And actually, if you don't like pornography, that's okay. There are good reasons to have an issue with this, but you need somebody to tell you that your discomfort has like a good reason, that you're not crazy. And I know a lot of young women don't have that. I know for many of my friends, I was that voice that told them, no, you're not crazy. What he did was not okay. And we just need more voices out there fighting against this.
Okay, so they need some validation and support in believing that basically that what they're feeling is right, that what they're feeling is not wrong, that they have every right to feel that way. That's what you're telling me?
Yeah, and this whole rhetoric of you're a prude if you don't do that, or you must be into kink, or you must be into wearing a specific kind of outfit or whatever. It's like all of this is floating around. Like, I still get pissed off. I get called a prude just for having a conversation. And it is really exhausting to have these conversations because people make all kinds of assumptions about your mental health and your sexuality. I've been asked like really invasive questions, even though usually I'm not talking about myself. I'm just talking about in general, like
Right.
what kind of sexuality do we want? I'm friendly in these discussions, but people feel really quickly, they feel attacked, and they just throw out the prude label or the anti-sex. And actually, Johns have nicknames for women like me, like the feminists who expose them. They call us the anti-sex cartel.
Oh boy.
So I don't mind that. I plan on getting that printed on a t-shirt because it's a total reversal. They're the anti-sex cartel. They are the ones who don't care that women they meet are frequently dissociated, apathetic, or high. They see all that. They write about it. They don't care. They are the anti-sex ones. They really are.
Well, Ellie, I wanted to ask you another question. So in your research now, if you find a guy who starts doing this kind of stuff when he's very young, what is the likelihood that he's going to stop at some point in his life, or does he ever? Is this something that he's going to just basically, you know, throughout his marriage and throughout his life, he's going to be victimizing women in this way?
That's a good question, and it's a complicated one. So there are statistics that say that there's this age range between 20 and 25. If he starts within that range, he's probably going to be doing it for the rest of his life. If he doesn't, then he's probably not going to start. So there's this formation of a sexual template that happens in like young adulthood. And if he's not formed in this way, shaped in this way, then he's probably not going to do it. There are some Johns who will quit when they get into a serious relationship, or they will quit for the duration of that relationship. But there are also tons who won't. So there's no certainty. There's like, if a woman meets a man and he's doing this right now and he promises he's going to stop, you cannot rely on that. Not at all.
Okay, that's what I was getting at, because that seems to be a thing that they want to know. The guy's promised that he'll stop, he won't do it anymore, and then the women, of course, being distrustful of that, snooping on his computer, they'll see the links to the porn sites, or money's disappearing because he's spending it at a strip club, this kind of thing. Oh, unbelievable. Okay, let me get back to you, Lilliana, and wait, unmute. There we go. Share a couple of stories that you've experienced with guys that totally take the curtain off of this thing. People believing that it's so glamorous and that women are in it by choice and making all this money, living this grand lifestyle.
Like I said, I think this is something that really stuck out to me when I started. And two girls that were there that basically became kind of like my mentors and friends in the business that helped me evolve, I guess, in the business. Because what the other panelists was saying, it's true. Sometimes you don't make a lot of money, and especially like if you're new in the business, because you don't know how to like really work it, you're not gonna make a lot of money. I remember my first day I made like $100, but that was at the expense of like people like totally degrading me. And when I say that, it's like I didn't have any like kind of stripper shoes, dress, or none of that. I came out like with a basic club dress and heels. And like the first people I ever spoke to, they just completely degraded me from like head to toe, insult your intelligence, this and that. Like you just felt really hurt by it. And there's days that go by where you don't make anything at all.
What? You don't even get like minimum wage?
No, you don't get paid nothing. Like you're only making tips, the money that they give you. And I've worked for clubs that they're like extremely predatory. And let's say you made $500, right? They will take $300 from you. Yeah, that's a common thing. Or like, and then let's say it was a slow day, you couldn't really make money, and the house fee is like $200, $300. This club would say, "Oh, you are in debt to us. So every dollar you make, you have to give it to us." So I'm like, okay, so that's basically like sex slavery then. I'm like doing this and I'm not getting a dollar for it, And, this world is really crazy. I would say to any young girl that's thinking about it that it's not this glamorous thing that they try to make you believe, in music videos, people talking about it. You're probably going to wind up with either some kind of drug addiction or alcoholism. Because I don't know anyone that does this job sober.
And that would be hard because you know what's happening to you, and you don't really want to be doing it. It has to be working on you mentally and emotionally in some kind of way.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't do the job sober. I would wake up and first thing I do is drink 2 bottles of vodka. Cocaine is really popular, in this industry, so it's literally everywhere. So if you never did drugs before, you're gonna find your way into like doing really hard drugs, honestly, because it's around everywhere. Everybody does it, and then it's kind of like people feel like I need to do this in order to work. Like if I cut down, then I'm not gonna make as much money. Because another thing too is like you are an entertainer, so being an entertainer, people come to you, with whatever they want. Like, I'm naturally a really shy person, really introverted, but I had to be this like huge, big personality, like, you know, making everybody else have fun and, you know, having a good time because that's my job, you know? So, you know, how am I going to get from there to that, you know?
Oh, so you had to
So
be
like
basically
drugs,
like an actress.
yeah, basically. Drugs are everywhere. You're probably gonna end up hooked on some type of drug. There's a lot of men that prey on women. Like they're they basically function as a pimp, you know, but they'll pretend to like be your boyfriend or something. And like at first they'll want to help you, like, hey, I'll pick you up and drop you off at work, at the club, you know, so that you feel safe. They make you feel like, oh, I'm not judging you for what you do, that kind of thing. And I would see young girls come in all the time and they would look a kind of way, you know, like they had light in their eyes, happy. I see that same girl, like, not even a month later, couldn't even recognize her. Like, the light in her eyes gone. You know, you could see, and this is another really important thing to add. A lot of women have trauma anyway, whether it
Right.
be childhood sexual abuse, they were raped or whatever, is very common. So if you have those kind of issues and PTSD or whatever from it, this is only going to exacerbate it because people violate you regularly. It's common to have somebody rape you, you know, like they just continually violate your body. And if you have issues like that, you know, with people touching you and this and that. And that's why I think a lot of people use drugs too, because they need to disassociate from what's happening to them. So it's not this glamorous thing. You know, like, yeah, I guess you can make money off of it, but your life, I haven't seen people really like be able to do this to take them out of a situation. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure, you know, there's always exceptions to the rule, but, you know, this only made my life go way downhill. It just added, like, so much destruction to it, you know, and, you know, they sell girls a dream about, oh, you could get all this money quick and fast, you know, like these things, you know, but it all comes at a cost. And, you know, there's certain things that you can't get back, like, you know, your innocence, your being naive, you know, like, you know, it's traumatizing, I guess, in itself. It's not this thing, it's not easy money. You know, your job is literally dancing. So, and what they do is far more than dancing. It's like acrobatics too.
Right.
So I have knee injuries, ankle injuries. Um, After I left the industry, I was so depressed, and I told myself I'm not moving anymore. Like, period. Like, like I'm gonna sit on the couch and that's it. Like, and it's a shame because I used to like dancing. I wasn't dancing when I was young, you know. So it just takes things from you, and you know, if you get out of it, it's gonna be years of work that you're gonna
Have
have
you
to do.
ever heard, and I'm going to ask you this question too, Ellie, have either of you ever observed or heard about men trying to get women out of this business, out of prostitution, out of the strip club,
I
out of
haven't,
porn?
I haven't seen it myself, honestly.
Okay, what about you, Ellie?
I have seen the Johns on forums say that they're trying to get a woman out, but it is for purely selfish reasons. They want to keep her as a personal pet, essentially. So, and
Mm.
some women will agree to these kind of. I mean, a lot of people call this the sugar daddy situation. So like he's gonna routinely pay her and she won't see anybody else and she can kind of make a living, but usually she's just sending the money home to her family in Romania or wherever. And this sounds like a slightly better deal because you don't have a different stranger every day. It's this one guy, and maybe you can figure out his mood swings and kind of tiptoe around him, um, but he's going to start thinking that you belong to him. So this is still a very dangerous situation to get into. Like the guys who see themselves as saviors are not safe to be around. And then there are a lot of guys who are not going to try to get her out, but who will still excuse them they'll excuse their behavior, like they're paying, even though they know that she's not there by choice, but because of poverty and other types of coercion, they will justify this by calling it altruism. They will say, oh, but my money's feeding her family, or is my money's protecting her from her pimp, because if she doesn't get her daily quota, she's going to get beaten up. So they like this savior narrative. Quite a lot of them do, but it's all fake.
So do you, or do they tend to express, other than what you saw in that forum about, oh, I want a Romanian refugee, which I thought that is just so bizarre. But do you noticed any things being posted about men preferring a certain race of women, a certain ethnicity? And that would be for
Yes.
you too, Happy, in just a second. Let me get Ellie's answer first. So you have noticed that.
Yes, it's like there's no way to not notice that. And the content on these forums itself pisses me off, but what pisses me off that the political left of my country refuses to look at this. Like, the racism is so overt. These men will use the N-word for Black women. They will call Romani women, which is like a specific ethnicity, very poor traditionally, gypsies, which is a slur. In many Romani people consider that a slur. They will use all these stereotypes: the submissive Asian woman, or the nymphomaniac, dark African woman, all of that. And then on the other hand, they will kind of juxtapose German women to that, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. Positively, as in she's a higher quality. I'll pay a little bit more for her because she's, German and white-skinned and that stuff. She's more of like a symbol of, look at what I can afford, even though I don't want to suggest that German women make a ton more money. It's not a lot more. But it's a bit of a status symbol for some men. And then on the other side, there's this whole narrative about German women, including women in prostitution, being too emancipated and too selfish sexually and too demanding. But look at those good submissive women from North Africa and Eastern Europe. There's countless examples of that, and I'm really I'm angry that the political left in my country is refusing to look at this. They will talk about racism all day long, but not in relation to the sex trade.
This is unbelievable. Ooh, okay. Lilliana, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I really believe that it does depend on location, like where you're located at. So I'm in Illinois, I'll say that, but I've seen it, like my club this is really common too. They won't hire African American women and the dark skinned women especially. And if they do, somehow somebody hired them, they kind of want to keep them in the back, And I would say the preference recently is still kind of like the blonde hair, American type look. You know what I'm saying? Like that was common. It's changing a little bit because people want more like, Hispanic looking women, people with, dark hair. But the other thing too that I noticed is like you'll hear men talk about all day, like, oh, I want a natural woman, a woman with no plastic surgery. But the women that don't hardly have to do any work, like in the strip club, like they just go and they sit and like they get steady business, is like the people that they got the breast implants, they got the fake butt, and then women who are natural bodied, you're gonna have to kind of work a little bit more. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna have to flirt harder with this guy, instead of just I'm sitting here and this, steady customers. So I'm not, one of my rules that I never believe what a man says. I see what he does.
Girl, we're soulmates. That's I preach that. I've been preaching that every day for the last almost 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't pay no attention to what they talk about because half the time they don't even know what they're saying anyway. Just running their mouths, just miscellaneous use of words.
Right, because it's like if you like natural women so much, why don't you just get natural women at the club? Like one of my friends that I mentioned earlier, she was a mom, she had gotten a mommy makeover, and her income went up drastically as soon as she got like huge breast implants, like just crazy looking, you know what I mean? Like not even like kind of natural looking, just like outrageously big, like too big for her frame even. So, but even with that, her income drastically went up. So I noticed that, you know, the stereotypical things, like when I was in the industry, I dyed my hair blonde, you know.
Oh,
I
did
mean,
you?
yeah, I had platinum blonde hair, so I did look different. Naturally, I have dark hair. I would try on different wigs, you know, to see, you know, but it's funny, like you'll put on a red wig. Oh, I got a couple more people today. Put on a dark wig. Oh, I didn't do so good. But it's like I noticed like steady, like a platinum blonde look with the fake tan, the outrageous orange skin, like that look. Me personally, like I made the most money looking like that, you know, and
Really?
I kind of, yeah, you know, like that kind of stereotypical look of like a whore or whatever they want to say, like platinum blonde hair, orange tan, heavy duty makeup, you know, and they'll say all day like, oh, I want a natural woman. Okay, yeah, why are you paying for this then? Because I could guarantee I'm not gonna show up there fresh faced, no makeup on, and get a lot of customers, you know. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, you never know. You might have tried pigtails and a diaper and probably got a whole bunch of new business.
Can I add
I
something?
did actually
I'm making
appreciate,
silly
you know,
jokes,
they
but
have
you
the
know what I mean. I'm just so disgusted right now. I don't even know what to say.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Ellie.
yeah.
So like the evidence on the forums is also very strong that men are looking for young women. And I just, to the people who say that this is just a normal job, I want to ask, in what other job are you going to make the most money as the youngest, most inexperienced person around? None. That being said, there are still some older women in the industry, like Lilliana said, like the trade works to like get the hooks in you, to get you in debt or get you involved with a pimp. So some women stay in there for decades and they can't get out, and they're still in there in their 60s. Yeah, and then they have to rebrand themselves to be the MILF type, or even now I've seen ads on John forums. It's called GILF, so grandmother I'd like to fuck.
Get out of
I can
here.
swear. Yeah, that exists too. Like, there's a clear preference for young women, but older women need to make a living and struggle to get out. So they try to create as a survival strategy, totally understandable, try to make that hot as well. But it always ends up being dehumanizing.
This is just, it just really makes you disgusted with men. What's this question? Do the sex workers do the sex workers rob and drug the clients? I guess both of you can respond to that question. Let's start with you, Liliana. Did you ever hear about any of the girls robbing and drugging one of the clients? Oh, wait a minute. Your mic is not unmuting here. Oh, there we go. Well, you unmuted. I think I tried to unmute it and then we crossed. Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So what did you
Okay.
did any of the girls to your knowledge ever drug or rob a client, or is that like some kind of urban legend?
I know this is coming up because of the Cardi B situation. I I have not seen it where they have purposely done it. It's more on the other end where like a guy will drug a girl and take her money. Like I've seen you know, like they gave this girl like a lot of Xanax, and Xanax is kind of like really like sedative. So like you could see her like while she was trying to give the guy a lap dance, like she's kind of just melting into the guy, and he's basically like molesting her, and then he like took her money. You know what I mean? The only thing that I could, yeah, really sad, you know. But the only thing that I could say that comes close to that, like this industry, like it does harden you, you know, in a lot of ways. So me myself, this guy, he wanted to keep doing dance after dance after dance. So I kept telling him like, hey, you know, it's gonna be this amount of money now. okay? And he's like, yeah, that's fine, whatever. So then when the dance is over, I'm like, hey, I need my money. Like, he's trying to like walk out the door. And this was kind of like towards the end of my career because by this point, I was like fed up with everything, you know? And you know how you have those crazy shoes? Like, I literally stomped on his foot and I like grabbed him. Like, it was a short Mexican guy, so I was able to do that. I grabbed him by the neck and I just took his wallet and left because I'm like, I'm not having you, like I would not do that obviously if I'm not getting paid and you're trying to rob me because you wasted my time. I feel violated. You're not getting away with this. You know what I mean? So that's the closest thing that I've seen personally. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I would say it's more on the other side of these people trying to drug you and take advantage of you, or like they walk around with like garter belts with the money in a rubber band because that's, believe it or not, the safest place to keep it. So like if a girl did get drugged or taken advantage of, you have like this wad of cash, you know, and like I'd see people like take money, you know, like that.
Just trifling. And what
Yeah.
about you, Ellie?
So I think it happens sometimes, but I can understand, because if she steals it instead of having to earn it, then she doesn't have to be sexually available to that many men. But I don't think it's that common. It's much more common the other way around. And you can also see this in another thing I've studied is the pamphlets that are given to women in prostitution, including in countries with legalization. These pamphlets themselves really tell the reality of the trade, because they tell women, you always got to keep your money safe, never put the money that you earned with the money that you earned previously, or put the money in the mailbox outside of the apartment that you're in so that he can't get it and steal it back if he's dissatisfied. There's tips like don't wear any expensive jewelry because the client might try to steal it. Don't wear high heels because there are going to be situations where you're going to have to run for your life. Don't lock the door because you're going to have to run. And this, to me, I just had this moment where I was like, what is going on? And this is this kind of nightmare eureka moment where I was like, okay, so the occupational hazard of prostitution is robbery, rape, or murder at the hands of your client. And that's just completely unacceptable to me. That is just, how can that be normal even in a country where it's legal? This is the advice that we give out to women. And just one more thing I want to add is that I've also studied the murders of women in prostitution, so I know the majority of killers are Johns. The statistics are very, very clear. I checked them myself for the last 30 years. And among the murdered are, of course, a lot of poor women, a lot of foreign women, but there are also some middle-class women, some women with no pimp, some women who are like this narrative that's always in the media of the student who's just doing it part-time. There's some women like that amongst the murdered too, because the John doesn't care why she's there. Doesn't matter why she gets in. She can still become a victim of a man who thinks that she's his personal punching bag and he can take it out on her.
This is unbelievable that they give them a pamphlet of like, workers' comp risks. My mind is just so blown right now. I've been doing what I've been doing for almost 30 years since I was a whippersnapper like Lilliana. And now it's like, you learn something new. Just when I think I heard it all, then I hear something that I didn't hear before. So my listeners in the audience, you guys are hearing this right along with me and learning all this. I don't know. It just gives me the itchies to think about men doing this kind of stuff. So Lilliana, when did you run across any women that you know personally that ended up, beaten up or murdered while you were at the club?
I don't know people that have been murdered only by like drunk driving. You know what I mean? Like they got too drunk, they drove home, and then they died because of that. I don't know about murdered, beaten, yes, raped, yes, gang raped, yes. Held hostage, one of my friends too, and that's really common. Like if you're a stripper, like a lot of them are also prostituting. on the side. They won't tell you that because it's still like a shameful thing, you know what I mean? Like it's only for, you know, people that they want to solicit, I guess, you know. And this one girl, she was telling me how this guy, it was in our local town, the mayor's son, like took her home, you know, from the club. They had a deal, had an arrangement, and she was supposed to do this and that for him. After that was done, she said while they were, you know, doing the act that he paid for, it was like extremely violent, like something that she never experienced before. Like he was doing it really violently. She got really scared, and this is like a big house that she's in. And she was like, okay, well, you know, I gotta go now. And this guy was not gonna let her leave. Like he was like locking all the doors like in the house, and she was like trying to escape this house like
Oh
from
my
this guy,
God.
and she's like, I'm going to call the police, you know. So he just let her went, but that's still a really scary situation, you know. I've seen, you know, people like they get just violated at the club, like, you know, whether it's like they got drugged or they took too many drugs, now they're out of it, you know, they physically can't move. So it's really sad because it's like there's this girl being like sexually abused right here, you know, and like why is no one doing anything about it? Like this girl's not giving you lap dance anymore and she's like passed out, you know. Or like I said, like some clubs, when they don't have good security, it is really risky when you go in and out of the club. Like I literally had a whole disguise, you know, to how I look in here is completely different than how I would look outside. And that's kind of why I wore a lot of makeup anyway, so that like, you know, people couldn't see my real face. It was kind of like in a mask almost. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
That
just
makes sense.
mm-hmm.
Okay. So Ellie, let's get back to you. Tell me a little bit more about your research with the men that you've done and what kind of impact this has had on their spouses and their families. I'm particularly interested in that.
There's a lot to talk about. I think maybe one of the more obvious ways that the mentality of prostitution can seep into a man's relationship is there are quite a lot of men running around who approach their relationships like they approach prostitution, as in, I paid for her dinner or something, now she owes me. Like the guy who sexually assaulted me, he did that once where he paid for my bus ticket, and then afterwards he tried to guilt trip me over that, to get me to sleep with him. He didn't succeed, but like I had to like fight him, and it takes a lot of energy. Like these guys, they will ask again and again until they wear down their victim. So not only Johns do that, men who just sexually entitled men do that, but it's especially common if he has this mentality ingrained in him by making use of the sex trade directly. Then there's the aspect of the change in sexual expectations. Like, again, this might be porn or prostitution. If he's making a lot of use of that, he might start viewing his wife through that lens, or his girlfriend, and say, honey, I want you to dress more like this, more slutty, more leather, or something like that. And women are very irritated and don't know why this is happening. It's going to be either porn or prostitution or both. Another ripple effect are STDs. I'm sorry to say. I don't want to suggest every woman who's been in the sex trade has an STD. Like, just and it's not cool to ask women about their history of their sexual health, but it is true that men will refuse to use condoms, and then they'll catch something, and then they go home and give it to their girlfriends or wives, including things like AIDS, so something incurable. And I think that that is quite serious, and that is a sort of act of violence against the girlfriend as well, obviously against the woman in prostitution, but the girlfriend or wife as well. And then finally, there's the aspect of when women find out that they were cheated on, usually like serial cheating, like over and over again, sometimes for years or decades, this can actually cause a type of trauma called betrayal trauma that can really destroys women's self-esteem. It makes them feel unworthy, undesirable. They can get depressed. They will gonna have trust issues for a long time. Like, I don't like. Some people have this attitude of, oh, why didn't she know that he was doing this? She's so stupid. I would ask for some degree of compassion for women who are partners to men who make use of this, because this can really, really crush them emotionally, psychologically.
Well, I would imagine they feel, bad enough as it is. They feel like, why didn't I know? Why didn't I see what was happening? And then you have some person outside of your marriage who doesn't even know what kind of front these guys put on, the mask that they wear, and they're straight sociopaths and narcissists. And so they're very skilled at manipulating and controlling and deceiving people. So, those of us who have studied this know that, but I think your average layperson doesn't really understand the depths and the extent to which someone will go to deceive someone else and pretend to be something that they're not. And so then these people will blame the wife or the girlfriend for their mate's cheating. And ooh, I'm glad we had this show during the day, because I wouldn't be able to sleep tonight. This is a bit much.
I was gonna add one thing. This happens like all the time in society, where women are pitted against each other. Like the society, or Johns are helped by society creating this narrative where the evil person, the one who destroyed the marriage, is always either the wife who didn't put out, or the prostituted woman who came in and destroyed it. And then it also pits women against each other, so that women in a brothel, not all of them, but some do make fun of the wives, and then the wives talk really disrespectfully, disparagingly about the women in prostitution, instead of looking at the actual perpetrator and the actual person responsible. So he gets off scot-free so often. That's really upsetting.
And Lilliana, because I remember at the top of the show when we first started this off, you mentioned how the guys would come in and bad mouth their wives, their girlfriends and stuff, and make it sound like the reason why these guys are there doing what they're doing is because these women weren't somehow meeting his standards. So do you think the idea was for them to try to do what Ellie just said, and basically pit you against the woman that they have at home?
Yeah, definitely. You see that a lot. And then as a woman in the sex industry, is really isolating because, men, they'll just look at you as kind of like a whore, but like maybe put you on a pedestal in a way. And then, like, for example, me, I lost all my female friends. Like, I didn't have any female friends because they just stopped disassociating with you because it's a lot of jealousy, I think, too, like, because I guess they see you as competition or, the one that they're fighting against. But like you said, it's really like the man involved. It's not like I don't believe in like women, hating on other women. I think all women should really just stick together because, it's most problems really do come from the guy. Like I remember, like I said, like a lot of women nowadays, they're going to the strip club, and like I used to hate it, and I was not the only one, but like a lot of them come whether they're going for like their bachelor party or they're like, oh, let's do something crazy, and they treat us kind of like zoo animals. You know what I mean? Like, oh, look at her, this, and talk crap about us, and like I know, because now we have online reviews. Like I would look up online reviews, and they talk crap like about the dancers, like, oh, her body was this, or she had a scar on her leg, or just like completely. And it's like, I can't believe this is a woman saying that. You would maybe expect that coming from a guy, but it's like a lot of these girls that are like trying to, I guess, patronize in a way, like the sex industry, like they end up being like very misogynistic because I think they might feel like they have something to prove, kind of, like one of the boys type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just go and they treat you like a zoo animal, like, and just degrade you. And some of the men are like, calm down, like this is somebody's job, you don't talk, like give somebody basic respect, So.
All right, we got a question that came in from the chat room. I want to address both of you, so we'll start with you, Lilliana. They want to know, what would you suggest to a young woman who is interested in joining the industry?
I would first ask why. Like, what is your motivation behind it? Because it's really hard to stay level-headed in this industry. Like, if you have a goal, like, oh, I want to make 10,000 so I could put a down payment on a car, a condo, whatever. Like, if you were going to go through with it, stick with that goal in mind. Don't befriend anyone in this industry. I would say if you're able to, like, take Ubers to and from. If you can't do that, keep a gun or pepper spray, whatever, in your car. Don't use drugs whatsoever. Watch your drinks at the club. Really kind of disguise yourself, like make sure that when you're working, like I said, I have dark hair. You're blonde when you're working. Or you have red hair, because you don't want people to kind of out you, because there's a lot of shame, and that can, like, people could see your address once they find out who you are, and you don't want people coming after you. But it's a really hard thing to do. Like, there's so many traps in this that I don't know how really you could do that. I would suggest to, if you're going to do it, like, wait till you get a little older. Because, like, I know, like, when I started, I was 18 to 20, and you can't give, like, an 18-year-old thousands of dollars. Like, there's no way. Like, they're going to spend that responsibly, you know what I mean? You're going to have all these people coming at you because it's this large amount of money, and, like, oh, let me help you manage it, this and that. It's just really predatory. You got to be a really strong person mentally, physically, and just have a clear goal in mind and stick straight to that. Don't get caught up in drugs and alcohol, because once you do, it's pretty much all over with. You're lucky to be able to stop.
So yeah, I get what you're saying. So if you get in it, have your specific goal. I'm going to make this money. I'm going to use it as a down payment on my house. And then I'm like a Vegas car dealer, bam, bam, out. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So Ellie, what did you have to say to that chatter who asked that question? And just to refresh your mind, it says she asked, what do you suggest to a young woman interested in joining the industry?
I would be like, talk to women who have left it and who are not invested financially, emotionally right now. Talk to them and ask them what it's really like.
Uh-oh, where did she go? We lost Ellie. Oh, there you are. You disappeared. You disappeared there for a minute.
I think my connection might be. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so my connection's not ideal. What I would say is, most of the women I've spoken to who were in prostitution got in thinking that they would just do it part-time, and got in thinking that they were gonna be in control, and it didn't work out. Most of the time it doesn't work out. Like I said, the industry gets its hooks in you. It works in a way to try and make you dependent so that you can't just leave when you want. And the problem with this I'm in control narrative, in this whole I'll be okay if I just find a business savvy way to get through this, is that when something does go wrong and you do end up hurt, you're going to be more likely to look for like the mistakes that you might have made. Like, this is what we see on a broader scale in German society right now, because it's been legal so long. People don't see the system as the problem or the men. They look for, what's wrong with that woman? Why was she traumatized? And this happens on a societal and an individual level. This narrative of she's in control and she's business savvy, so she's fine. When she's not fine, then the question is, what's wrong with her? And that can be really destructive as well. The victim blaming that arises from that. So I would be like, if you have any chance of avoiding it, don't get in.
Okay. Did you find, during your research, Ellie, what did you find about the abductions of young girls? Because I don't know what's going on in Germany, but here in the United States, girls between the ages of 12 and 15 are disappearing off the streets of America at like 5 or 6 a day. And those are the ones that we hear about. And this has been going on for several years. These girls are rarely recovered and no one knows where they are and what happened to them. And you'll occasionally see pictures up on, billboards or on websites and some, flying around social media. But this is becoming a very popular thing, and it concerns me, especially when so many teenagers have access to the internet and they're basically, they're just using it freely, exposing their bodies, not really cognizant of, the information that they share about where they go to school and where they live and the places that they go. So these little girls are being abducted, and it's my contention that that's where they're ending up, as a sex slave somewhere. So in your research there, since it's legal, is that an issue in Germany, or is that not?
That is still an issue. Like, the availability of 18 plus women has not stopped the demand for girls. Some people have even suggested that it goes up because, I mean, paying for her when she's 18 is fine. So maybe if she's 17 and a half, that's okay too. Like, there have actually been a number of scandals. I hate that word because it makes it sound like an isolated incident. It's not isolated. There's been repeated cases of minors found in legal brothels, like licensed brothels that you can find on Google Map. Pimps will bring trafficked women and minors into legal brothels, and no one's around to check, so they get away with it. Or the Johns will talk about it online. I wasn't sure if she was 18, or she started crying, told me she wasn't 18. That does happen. So those are like the girls being brought in, usually from like Eastern Europe or like Poland, as minors to make money for a pimp or feed a family. But there's a different type of exploitation of children, and that is, I actually have a friend who was a victim of a child pornographer, and it happened while she was still with her family. She never was abducted. She still slept at home. She ate with her family at the dinner table, but in her free time, she was with an adult man who was abusing her and putting videos of her online. So that's the scary thing about grooming. That child can still be sitting at your dinner table, but she's in the sex trade, being exploited. It doesn't always require abduction.
I think that's an important point to make, and it's a good one that follows on the heels of the show we did on Thursday, ladies, about child sexual abuse. That's a very important thing to bring out. Ellie, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Well, we've definitely ran over. You guys are both fantastic guests, and this conversation is both creepy and fascinating at the same time. I don't quite know what to do with this information that you're sharing, but I'm glad that you're sharing it. So I'm going to unmute your mic, Lilliana, and give you an opportunity to make your closing comments to the listeners about this topic and about the industry as a whole.
Honestly, it's a really predatory industry. I think everything is based on a lie. Like, lying is the rule, like lying about my name, age. There was girls I was working with that they were 16, 17, and this is in America. I was given alcohol, like, starting at age 18. You know what I mean? Like, it's like this industry, even like those certain things are legal, like strip club is legal. A lot of, dirt goes on underneath it. It's a really, like, harsh industry. I don't encourage people to get involved in that at all, because it's really kind of like a time waster. You're going to have difficulty like going back into normal society. And I've only been out of it for like 3 years, and like still I have like trouble, like, I had to work really hard to get my life to a normal part. And like even something so small as like my sleep schedule, like I became nocturnal, like staying up all night. I have insomnia now, like I can't sleep at night. I have to take medication, things like that. So,
Or you probably have some
I think another,
PTSD.
yeah, definitely that too. But I think, it's good. Like we should encourage young people to develop their own organic sexuality, not based on the sex industry or what I saw, or just like your own life experiences. That's healthy based on what people are telling you, look at this or look at that, because I know this too. The sex industry, like, I feel like they're grooming the larger part of society into kind of being, it's like borderline pedophilia. You know what I mean? Like with
Oh,
certain things.
well, I'm in total agreement. They're trying to
Yeah,
pass laws to make consent for children legal.
yeah, yeah. Like how the other panelists was saying, oh, 17 and a half, or they have things barely legal. Or if you like really kind of like break down some of these sexual or kinks or whatever they call it, like, oh, call me daddy, or like, I'm wearing the schoolgirl outfit. That, you know what I mean? Like, why is that a thing? Like, that's important for people to. I feel like we have so much pushed on us that we don't think deeply about it, and many of us have not had the opportunity to develop our own sexuality, like organically based on like our own experiences, rather than like porn, strip clubs, this and that. Oh, this is sexy because I was told it was. That's just a common thing.
Right.
People don't think deeply about it.
I got you. Well, let's see what Ellie has to say. Ellie, you got some closing comments for the listeners?
Yeah, so one thing I would say, I mean, we touched on this, is the media narrative about this is just a job and this is glamorous. Really watch out for that. Don't trust it. Like, try and get your own information. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They have a lobby, a worldwide lobby, and they are funding a lot of the sanitization efforts. So if you're seeing the sex trade being sanitized, think critically about that. Also, if you can get informed of what might be going on in your area, specific vulnerable populations, there are always organizations there trying to help women and girls get out or trying to do prevention work. They are chronically underfunded, and your money could be put to good use there. And then just to say something slightly hopeful at the end, there are ways to stop men from doing this, I don't think by being nice and friendly. I'm not usually in favor of shame, but in this instance, I am. Studies are very clear. The Johns on the forums are clear. If society says you do this, you're going to be socially dead, you might lose your job, you might lose your wife, a lot of them will stop. That's very clear. And there is a law now in 8 different countries called the Nordic model, which criminalizes Johns and Pams, but decriminalizes people in prostitution and tries to create alternatives. That is spreading globally, and there's a movement for that. And the Johns on the German forums are really scared it's going to come to Germany, and it might. We're working on that. And when the demand goes down, pimps are going to have less incentive to traffic women and to traffic girls. So I could just ask you, stop shaming women for trying to make a living and taking great risks to feed their families, and start shaming the Johns.
Oh, applause. Okay, let me open up. I'm going to open up both of you guys open up your mics. I'll let you do it. And say your goodbyes to the listeners. I just want to communicate from myself on behalf of them. I appreciate your bravery, and I'm happy that you, Lilliana, are on the other side of that nonsense. You must be a lot tougher than what you even imagined that you were, to make it to the other side and still have, good spirits and a positive approach to things. So you should give yourself some credit for that. You're a survivor, chick. You got the stuff. So I anticipate will do great things. It's not going to be easy. I see you're struggling a little bit, but I think in the end, every dream that you have for yourself will come true. And I thank you for sharing your story with us. I really, really appreciate you reaching out and finding me for this show.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak on it. I view like if we have to go through a hard time, the best thing you could do is give meaning to your suffering. And I believe knowledge should be passed on, freely given to people. So I hope like I help people, kind of like de-glamorize it because, that's what got me. I'm like, oh, I can make all this money, but even in this day and age, like you're gonna carry the weight of society's shame. So as a woman, we just have to look out for each other, educate each other, help younger women.
I'm in total agreement. And Ellie, you too, if there's some links that you want me to put up, I put your website address in the show description. And but if there's something else you want me to add to it, just let me know. Just send it to me by email or something, and then I'll add it to the. Oh, where did Ellie go? She's still, her mic is still muted.
I'm
Oh,
still
there
here.
she. Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
you hear what I
definitely
just.
everyone.
I have, like I said, I
Yes.
have your website there, but if there's something else, other websites you want me to add or some other information that can help them, get
Yeah.
involved a little better, just email it to me and I'll add it to the show page so that, your video and all
Can
the
I give a
information will be in one place.
Can I give a shout out?
Oh, definitely. Go ahead.
So a lot of my work was inspired by the German prostitution survivor movement, and I especially want to give credit to Hushka Mao. She's got a website. A lot of what she's written has been translated into English. She actually started a lot of the research on the forums, and like my project wouldn't have happened without her. And everyone should go read her blog. Extremely informative, extremely well done political analysis of what's really going on in the sex trade and how we can stop it.
That sounds perfect and wonderful. Well, I want to thank both of you for spending this time with us. And I'm sorry I kept you a little bit longer than we originally booked you for, but I do appreciate you, staying and finishing out the show with me. And I wish you both the best of luck and continued success.
Thank you. You guys have a good one.
You
It was a good
too.
show.
Bye, Ellie.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Lilliana.
Bye. Bye, you guys.
Bye.